be prepared.
Have you ever done anything like this?
I did have to tell our story at a suicide walk once, but I was able to write that out and like knew exactly what I was going to say. Never just, off the cuff.
Yeah. Well, no pressure. Right now, I don't have any subscribers, and so it's just
Hey, it'll happen.
yeah. I just I think it's I think I don't know your whole story, so like I've known you for a long time, but I just want to. I know you got a lot to share, and I know you've had some breakthroughs in your life, like many of us do, and I think it'd just be interesting to put that out there. So I'll go ahead and get started.
Right.
Guys,
Okay.
thanks for joining us today. This is the Opening Doors podcast. I'm the host of the show. My name is Jared Rand. This is episode number 2. I have a very special guest today. Sanita Glick Simms has been a friend of mine for a very long time. Lost touch there for a few years in the middle and have recently come back together as friends. Facebook does wonders, I guess. And so I thought that she had a very interesting story to share. She is part of the AFSP, which is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And this is directly related to her story. So, welcome, Sanita.
Thank you.
Um, can you do like just like a brief, a brief story? Like take me through, growing up, like what's background, like what's kind of brought you to this point and, just a little bit about yourself to kind of take it through, to take it into that.
Sure. So I was very fortunate that my upbringing was what you would call like normal. I mean, my parents are still together to this day, so I never encountered, the divorce. However, when I was 4, my dad got sober. So I don't remember a lot of his alcoholism per se, that a lot of kids probably do encounter. I don't remember. I just know stories that have been told to me. Um, so again, he got sober when I was 4. He's They're amazing parents. I had an amazing childhood. Um, but then I think as we grow and we mature, we tend to like venture out and I don't know, sometimes we don't choose the right path. And that was me in my senior year of high school. I chose to run away. I thought I was, totally in love with this boy. And I knew he was all wrong for me, but that didn't change things. So I ran away from home and I mean, through the grace of God, I still graduated high school with, straight A's. But I just chose not to live at home during that time. And um, it was rough. It was really rough.
So what do you
So,
think, like looking back on that, what do you think, when you're like, you said you knew that he was wrong for you, like at the time,
right.
and you still went with it. So like off reflection, looking back 20 years, 20 years ago, I mean, you're like, what, is there something that underlying thing that kind of still drove you towards that decision?
Um, so a lot of it, I think, was the thrill. He was, I don't know what you want to call it, he was a naughty boy, and so the thrill of him being like this naughty kid, and I was such a good girl. Like, I went to Catholic school, and I didn't party. I mean, I didn't do any of that. I was your, yeah, I was your typical good Catholic girl, and so I think the thrill of him being this naughty boy was like, oh, I need a little bit of that in my life. So I think that's what pushed me towards all that. And of course, my parents were like, you can't be with him, and that's
Well,
when I
of
was like, well,
course,
then I'll
and
just run
like
away.
you want to rebel against everything your parents say. I mean, it's just
Correct.
a kid thing, you know.
Right. Right. Exactly. So, so then after like, obviously graduating, my grandma, and we've always been really close. And my grandpa had gotten really ill, and so she called me from, I was staying with a friend, and she called me and said, your grandpa's really sick, and I never told him that you ran away. I think it's time you come home. You need to make your amends with your parents, and you need to come home. Like, this isn't right. And that literally killed me. Like, that she kept that secret from him. They're married, and so I was just like, I gotta go. And I called my mom, and she's like, I'm gonna talk to your dad. I don't know how he feels about you coming home. And good for them for setting boundaries.
Huge.
I don't. Right, right. They're my parents. They still love me, but good for her for not just saying, of course you can come home. And obviously they talked about it, and my dad's like, there's going to be boundaries for you, when you come back. And I'm like, fine, whatever. I'm ready. And yeah, I mean, we have an amazing relationship today, through the grace of God. I have no idea how, they're able to forgive and all that. That's a lot.
Oh
But
my God. That makes me think of my mom too. It's like I went down,
right,
like I say I didn't grow up until I was 30, and she,
right,
she's literally stayed there the whole time. And the awesome thing about my mom is that she was okay at setting boundaries, but one thing she did was she always just, it was always a thing where it's like, you know what? Um, you have to make choices, and you have to live with the consequences. Like, you get to choose whatever you want to do, but you don't get to choose what consequence comes with it. And
right.
so she just let it happen. And that is a huge thing of what shaped me is
Mm-hmm.
having a mom that cared that much to just let things happen and let me live and learn.
Right.
So
Yeah. Huge. Yep. Yeah. So I'm trying to think. After that, I just went into the workforce. I didn't go to college. I just decided to go into work. I worked at Principal with my mom actually, and um, started going to like AA meetings with my dad because he's like, you might not have the tendencies to be like a drinking alcoholic, but you have the personality of an alcoholic. And he's like, I think you could really benefit from meetings. And so we started going to meetings, and
did that
there was a
initially
young
did that initially like
go.
strike did that initially strike you as like it didn't make sense for that to be true, that you would have that personality but not be a drinker, like as someone who wasn't an alcoholic? I mean, because I hear that all the
Right.
time where they're like
Yep.
that people that aren't alcoholics, they just can't think, they can't understand how they could somehow be that kind of person without the drinking.
I I don't really know. I mean, I kind of thought he might be right, but it didn't like strike me as like, oh, I don't get that. I got it. I mean, I grew up with him drinking, so it made sense to me, I guess. Um, and I always hung out with their friends. Like, they had a lot of their friends from Alcoholics Anonymous come over on the weekends and hang out. And so, and I, like I said, I didn't go and hang out with kids from high school. I hung out with them. So it wasn't like foreign for me to go to a meeting with him, I guess. Um, so I started going to these meetings, and there was, I can't remember exactly how it went down, but I remember him saying, hey, there's this young kid that wants to meet you. He wants to take you to dinner. And I'm like, really, Dad? Like, seriously? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Well, he introduces to me, and this is my favorite. I was like, he had jeans and penny loafers on, and I was like, really, Dad? Like, no, I can't do this. Like, who wears penny loafers with their jeans? Like, serious?
Let me tell you, if you came down here and let me tell you, if you came down here and hung out in Florida, I've been down here 2 years, and it is the thing to where, like, I can't believe
That's
that
hilarious.
they're wearing penny loafers with no socks and jeans.
Right, right.
But
Yeah,
anyway, so you're
yeah.
like, hell no.
I was like, this is not going to happen. He's like, just give him a chance. Well, he was very persistent, like, and so I was just like, fine. So we went to dinner, and I mean, obviously, he was very charming. He was in a program for drugs and alcohol, obviously, and his family, his dad was a pastor, and so he was living with some friends because they obviously move around as a pastor, and so we just started hanging out, and yeah, we kind of fell in love, I guess, and we got pregnant with Saley, my oldest, And at 8 months pregnant, we decided we were going to get married. So we got married,
How
and
old were you?
that was kind of a. I was 21. He was 22, very young. So yeah, and he moved in with my parents because again, like his parents were on the move, and so he moved in with us, and it was a whirlwind. I mean, we were young, married, and having a baby. Like it was a crazy time, and we decided to get our own place, and things just kind of. I don't know when things turn. To be honest, I just know that he became a different person, and was like gambling a lot, and so I said to my dad, "We're going to lose our apartment." Like I didn't realize he wasn't paying the bills, and I said to my dad, "We're going to lose the apartment," and I'm not ready for that. And so he worked nights, and so my dad said, let's move your stuff out. You and Saley can come stay here. He can figure his stuff out." And so we did that. Looking back, that was a lot. I mean, he was at work and didn't even know we were moving out. He came home and found out like we were gone, and he promised to go to counseling, and so I was like, okay, like we'll do this. I'm gonna stay with mom and dad. You get your own place. Let's see how this works. And he called my mom one night and told her that he was gonna kill himself, and she's like, don't be doing that. Like Sanita doesn't need that in her life, you know. She's trying to raise Saley, and I didn't believe him. Like probably most people don't believe when people say that. And so we continued to go to counseling, and then I think I had Wednesdays off, if I remember right. And so he said, you have, you know, it was like a Tuesday. You have Wednesday off. Why don't you and Saley come spend the night and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, but I'm sleeping on the couch because, you know, technically we're separated and we have stuff to work out. And he's like, I can appreciate that. So we did. I mean, we had a good time. It was fine. And then we left the next day, and he called me again, and he said, why don't you guys come spend the night? Whatever. And I was like, you know, I was probably wrong in the first. I gave you the wrong impression. Like we have lots of work to do, and I don't think it's right. And so I would go to work during the day, and he'd work at night. So we didn't have to pay for daycare because he would take Saley while I went to work, and I'd take her while he went. Yada yada. So that morning he didn't show up to pick her up, which I thought was really weird because it's not like him to be untimely at all. And so I call my mom, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I got to get to work. He's not here. She's like, take her to her friend. She does in-home daycare. It'll be fine. So I did. And I was working part-time at the funeral home, and I just had this unsettling feeling like something wasn't right. And my mom said, you know, you don't go check on him. Just call the cops and tell them you have a weird feeling. You guys are separated. Let them go deal with it. And they found him at his apartment. So they called me at work and told me, and that time, probably for about like a year, is pretty much a blur. I don't remember a whole lot. I do remember I absolutely was terrified of nighttime. Like I didn't want to go to sleep. I didn't want the day to end. I don't know what that was about, other than just being by myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't really tell Saley a whole lot. Obviously, she had just turned 1. But when she turned 10 is when she started to question things, like how did he die, yada yada yada. And it was like, okay, I feel like maybe I need to be honest with her, because for a long time we just said, you know, your dad was really sick, which in all reality I don't know that was so much a lie, other than just not telling the actual truth.
True.
And so I just set her down, and I told her exactly everything, and all she said was, okay, I don't want to talk about it anymore, and I let it go. And I've always been honest with her about anything she's ever wanted to know. Now she's 17, and a lot of things are surfacing, as you know, they probably should. She gets angry, and so do I still. You know, it's like she's learning how to drive. She's going to be graduating, and you're missing all this.
Right.
You know, so through that, we do a suicide walk here in Des Moines. They have them all over the place. But we do one here in Des Moines, her and I, and we just go every year and walk. And like I said, one year we actually told our story there. So that's kind of what we do just in his honor. But she obviously, has all these memories and stuff
Right.
that she keeps of him. So
To back up a little bit, because I want to
yeah.
add as much value as I can to anybody who's watching this, and
Right.
whether they're having you know these similar types of feelings of going through that depression. I know it has to be related to that depression, insecurity, all
Mhm.
kinds of things that are deep down. And also to people who were in your position, who are in your position right now, who have seen some kind of signs. So looking back at that, like what have you? I'm sure you've done tons of reflection on this. I mean, I can't imagine.
Right.
Like I'm a super analytical person. So like I always run all kinds of stuff through my head all the time. I play it back, I'm like
Right.
just trying to figure it out. So like looking back
Yeah.
on that, what are some, real quick, what are some like some things that people can be aware of to pick up on signs? If you're somebody out there who's doing these things, um,
Mhm.
or who is noticing these things, like what are some things that you can notice, looking back on that?
So first of all, I don't ever put that when someone says something like, oh, I'm going to kill myself or anything along those lines. I'm the first one to jump on it. I mean, I've encountered it with our 17-year-old daughter and a lot of her friends, not her herself, but her friends. And I'm like, we're not messing around with this. I don't care if they're joking or not. They should know better than to joke with our family. We've been through this. And so I'll call the hotline right away and be like, this, I don't know if this is true or not, but you need to go check it out, or you need to call them and check it out. And um, but signs so much is just obviously saying that. I mean, he was reaching out at that point. Um, the other thing for me that should have been a sign, he left me a note, and he gave it to me on our daughter's first birthday, which was in August, and he passed away in September. So just a couple weeks before him actually completing suicide, he gave me a note, and it said all those things like, you're the better parent, she's better off with you. I didn't get it at the time, but like you said, looking back, I'm like, that was his suicide letter.
So it's
I
like,
just didn't know
yeah,
it.
it was almost like putting it in. It was almost like he was like putting his life in past tense,
Yeah.
like it's
Yep.
already done.
Totally.
All right.
Yeah. Definitely.
So that's huge right
Mhm.
there. The other
Yeah.
things too that kind of stick out for me too are, because like I said, I've been through a lot of stuff too, and I'm not gonna lie and say that I've had those thoughts before. Like,
Right.
but I've, but like I said, I'm super analytical, so I play it all the way out, and I like overthink it, and I'm just like, I can't even,
Yeah.
like it gets stopped. But like other things that really stands out to me, what you said is like, the gambling. If you have a loved one who is gambling too much, abusing drugs, if they're avoiding contact with loved ones, like stuff like that
Mhm.
really stands out to me. And
Right.
so I mean, I think is that kind of right along the lines of it?
Right. Because, like I said to my dad, I don't know if he was drinking. I mean, he had his own place, so he very well could have fallen back into that trap, which
Right.
would make complete sense. And then he was going to a counselor, and they put him on meds. And you hear all the time, that if they don't give those meds enough time, then that's when they complete suicide. So it's a whole mixture of things, and looking back, I'm like, why didn't that counselor reach out to me knowing I was his wife, saying, hey, I just put him on this medicine. You should probably keep close tabs. I had no idea he was on medicine until we went to clean out his apartment. So, yeah,
Wow. Yeah, that's
right.
crazy. And then,
It is crazy.
to keep going, like to keep going through with the story, um, you didn't only have two people; you had three people because I think of Crystal Levon,
Yep,
and she was really close
yep,
to us too. So, like,
yep.
when I hear that stuff, it's mind blowing. So, like, what? Who was it first? Was it Crystal or was it Jory?
So technically, Ben's best friend committed suicide 2 years prior to him.
Wow.
Yeah. And So his best friend, and then Ben, and then yeah, Jory and I started dating again after Ben, and then he committed suicide, and then Crystal. Yep,
What,
crazy.
what goes through your mind, like, the first time is bad enough. You know what I'm saying? And,
Right.
Ben's friend,
Mhm.
he was kind of like he was kind of peripheral friend, you know what I'm saying? Wasn't like
Right.
attached, but like then you go
Right.
through Ben and then Jory, and like what,
Mhm.
and then talk a little bit about that story of how that came about, and like because that's super rough stuff right there. Like I still am in disbelief
Yeah.
about the whole situation, but go ahead.
That was that one was pure alcoholism at just at its peak. He had just got out of prison, I believe, from like 3 years, and Lynn had obviously reached out to my mom and was like, 'cause she knows my parents were in the program, and so my mom's like, hey, how do you feel about taking him to meetings? And I'm like, sure. I mean, we've been friends since we were little, so I'm like, of course. And started taking him to meetings, and then he kind of was like, oh, we don't have to go to meetings, we can just say we're going. And I'm like, oh geez, okay. And so then it got that bad where it was like, oh, just tell him you're taking me to a meeting, then let's go to dinner or whatever. And it's like, okay, I don't feel like I'm doing the right thing here. And so I just told him, I'm like, I can't do this, like I can't lie about this. And that really pissed him off, obviously. And yeah, I woke up one morning just to an email from him, and I was like, well, this is weird. And it was pretty much that was his goodbye letter. But a lot of his, like I said, he had to have been drinking at the time because he said a lot of hurtful things. Just like, Ben was your fault, I'm your fault. That's two. How many more for you? Was
Oh my
like
god.
his email. And so I kind of like freaked out, like what? And so I called Lynn, and she confirmed that yeah, he had committed suicide that morning, and at their house. And I went to his service and everything. But yeah, in my heart, I feel like she blames me because she, totally cut ties with us and really wants nothing to do with us. And as a mom, looking at it, I can't really blame her. You kind of have to have, I, I feel like
Empathy.
sometimes you have to have somebody to blame to make it feel better, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like I think that's how she deals with it. And yeah, but that was a rough one. That one was really rough. So
Yeah, after thinking, I can, I hung out with Jory a lot, had a lot of sleepovers, spent a lot of time with him. And
right.
I, I look back on some of that and can almost see, with, not trying to say, anything bad or anything, because everybody goes through their shit. Everybody's parenting is
Right.
different. Everybody's this and that. But I could see how someone could be struggling in their head with the way that the way that he was brought up. Because I used to witness some interactions between him and Lynn that were not pretty. And,
Right.
it's not any way that a child should be, treated, and I could just,
Right.
I can recall like some days I'm just like, you're a kid, so you're really not, you're like trying to figure out if this was like, if this is supposed to happen or if this is like,
Right.
because this isn't what happens at my house, but,
Right.
so I could almost see, leading up to that of what kind of turmoil he could have been going through, to lead up to
Mhm.
that point, and so, it, breaks my heart to, that it came to that because, I just don't think that that's ever an option. I think it's
Right.
I think it's, it's not the way to go out.
Right.
There's always another solution. That's never a solution to the problem.
Right.
And
Well, I just like I said, I feel sorry for his family. He had a son,
yep,
and I
Dominic.
mean, they missed 3 years of his life, being in prison, and then he comes home and this happens, and I'm just like, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a rough deal.
And then what about
Hmm.
and then Crystal happened. So you're just, I
Hmm.
mean,
That one, that one was weird to me, and I still struggle with it because I didn't properly get to say goodbye to her. It happened out of state, and her family chose not to bring her back home, and so, and they were only allowing like so many people to go, and so I think everybody needs closure when it comes to like suicide, because it's so sudden, and um, so I didn't get that closure, and so that was really hard for me. And Carl and I actually went. I was in her wedding, and so we went to South Carolina for her wedding. So kind of like you through Facebook, we had like rekindled our friendship, and I was in her wedding, and I went to her, bachelorette party, and like just all these things. And then all of a sudden, I get this call, like, yeah, and I was like, wait, I didn't even really know that that was an issue with her.
I know
And
it just comes out of
looking back,
nowhere.
I think it was, yeah, but I think looking back, she's always been really good at hiding her true feelings. I mean, I just remember like when we were growing up, she was like that. And she also had a rough home life. I mean, her mom was a stripper
I know.
when we
Oh
were
my
little.
God. Like, yeah, that's one of the biggest things that
So
one of the biggest things that I remember about back in junior high is, or it might have been like sixth grade or something. It was like fifth or sixth grade, but I can just remember um, a situation where, when we all found that out, and like we're just kids,
right,
so kids are mean and we're talking shit, and like, so I remember
right,
it was probably me and Jory or somebody like that, and basically making fun of her or doing something like that because her mom's a
right.
stripper. Her dad was too, and
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
yeah, her
Oh,
dad,
geez.
so one day I wake up and there's a knock on the door, and my mom, calls me in there, and it's Crystal's dad standing there with Crystal, and he's a big dude, and
Oh,
like
geez.
he was
Yeah.
like swole dude, and like he came to confront the situation, and like I mean, obviously that changed me, and I was just like, I'm, it's
Right,
just a person, and
right.
so yeah, I can remember that totally, but I can just imagine. I remember how quiet she was and how reserved,
Yep.
and so you never knew what was going on, you know.
Right. Yep.
But it's
For
just
sure.
it's crazy how it takes you there. Um, so through all of this, um, have you had, you've had some major breakthroughs for yourself, haven't you? Like where you
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
somehow broke out of a, just kind of broke out of a shell. I mean, eventually everybody's on their own path, their own learning groove and all this stuff. And like
Right.
what was a turning point, like a major breakthrough for you? Because obviously going through that many, losing that many friends that way and being that close, um, there's got to be some sort of like, you go through some kind of depression a little bit, or like
Right.
wondering, like there's guilt, there's like, was
Yep.
it really my fault? Or like,
Uh
so
huh.
take me through some of that, of how you broke through that, and then like what do you, is there any defining moments, that you can kind of touch?
Yeah. Um. So it's crazy because I always say that like Carl was my saving grace. I wasn't looking for him. I don't know if he was looking for me, but I was not looking for him. Um. But I was going down a pretty bad path. Once again, I mean, I had just lost my husband, and you're right. I was probably feeling some sort of guilt at that point, and I was like out drinking all the time, and just thinking like, nobody could touch me. I was invincible, and I will never forget my mom and dad setting me down and saying, "You're about to lose your daughter," and I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Oh, we're gonna take your rights away. Like you're out of control." And I was just like, "Oh my God, like she's already lost one parent. You can't take out, you can't take me." And so, um, I don't know. I was they were out of town, and I had a babysitter, and I was gonna go out with a friend, And Carl had sent me this message on MySpace like, hey, I'm a single mom. I got a babysitter. I'm going out tonight. If you want to meet me, here's your chance. And seriously, that was it. Like that was it. I quit drinking and was just like, I have to be a better mom. And I tell him all the time, you made me be the mom I am today, because I was not doing that. I was not being a good mom. I was not showing her, straight and narrow. And I, I've never looked back, So looking back on that is kind of scary, actually, making me talk about that.
Yeah,
Like, nobody ever wants to lose their kids. Like, what the heck?
absolutely.
But life can make you do some crazy things, you know?
So what are you doing
So,
now? Like what are some of the big things in your life? Obviously family. Um,
yeah.
you are, you're an advocate for the AFSP. Um, you do, I mean, you got Advocare stuff you're doing. You starting that back up again, you said?
Yeah, I mean, so Advocare's not direct sales anymore. They quit doing that. So it's just customer based. So, but
Okay.
it's always been a part of my life, so I can't really stray from it.
And then
So there's that.
the active wear.
Yep,
Yep.
that's my passion. I love
Yes.
activewear, but yeah. So I don't know. I mean, you obviously know about the whole surrogacy thing with my sister. That's
That's
huge
huge. Yeah,
right now.
talk about that. Like what made you what's the story behind that?
So we're obviously, we've as sisters, we've always been really close. We're fortunate to have that relationship, obviously. And she she got pregnant. Gosh, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Very unexpected, as most pregnancies are, and we were really, really excited. And um, I can't remember exactly how that one all went down. I think, like, her water broke, and so she went to the hospital, and she ended up losing the baby. It was a little girl, and that was rough. I mean, I've had 3 kids and never experienced it myself, but to be a big sister and watch your younger siblings have to go through something like that, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And she's the really bubbly one. I mean, she's always very bubbly, always got a smile on her face. So to watch her just kind of go through um, depression, I mean, I
Yeah.
expected. It was rough. It was rough for all of us. Um, and then a couple years later, she got pregnant again, and we were all excited, calling this is going to be your rainbow baby. I don't know if you've heard of that term. And so we're like, this is going to be it. Everything's going to be fine. The first one it was just a fluke. It's fine. It's going to be good. And the same thing happened. She made it about 2 weeks further this time.
Wow.
And the same thing happened. And I said, that's it. You're not going to do this again. I said, if you guys truly want to have your own baby, just let me carry it. I've always wanted to be a surrogate. That's kind of been a passion of mine. However, Carl's like, I can't watch you be pregnant and then give this baby away. I don't know. It must be a guy thing. I have no idea.
God bless him.
Right. So I'm like, okay, fine. But when this happened, he's like, I wouldn't even think twice. It's your sister, of course. I would let you do that. And so that's been a process. We had our first consultation just to kind of see what the cost would be, and now we're just trying to raise the money for that. We're over halfway there, which is super, super exciting. So,
Wow. Good
yeah.
job.
So that's awesome. I mean, I'm excited for that. Like I said, I love being pregnant, and just to know that I'm going to have a special bond with my niece or nephew because I'm going to be carrying them is pretty amazing. So that's kind of where my passion is at this point. I'm just really focused on that and getting the money raised for her to be able to have a baby of her own, and that will be quite exciting.
What do you see for your future? Like what
Oh
do you want to
goodness.
do?
I absolutely love my job right now at the funeral home. I don't. So my full time job is pet services. So I handle all of pets that pass away. I cremate them and return them to the family. Obviously, that's my full time job. However, it's not full-time status. We're not real busy. We're word of mouth. And so then I work in the office. I work directly with families that have lost a loved one, setting up their funeral, doing their folders, writing their obituaries, all that kind of stuff. And I love it. Everyone says it's like a part of me. It's in my nature to
Yeah,
be
it's just
that.
morbid. They just think it's more like your whole life is like it's just all morbid. No, it's
That's
not. You know what I
hilarious.
say? I'd say it doesn't have anything to do with the funeral and dead people. It has to do with people, dealing with people
Right.
in a
Yeah.
troubled time. That's exactly what you're,
Yep.
and that
Yeah.
that brings me to what I was going to say. A big thing. What I think trials and tribulations in our lives, they
Mhm.
they are there for us,
Right.
and they create strength. And
Yep.
so, um, what do you have to say to that? Because I mean, it's true for me.
Yes. So I say that all the time because obviously at the funeral home I encounter suicides, with wives, with their husbands. And just I would say a month ago I had one and she was just having the hardest time. And I'm not one to talk about my story at work. I mean people I work with obviously know, but with other families. And this time it was tugging at my heart as I was sitting there helping her write the obituary. It was just tugging at my heart because she was having such a hard time. And I just said, okay, I'm going to step out of my job for a moment and I'm just going to be an ordinary person.
Be
And she
human.
just kind of, she just kind of looks at me and I said, I have been in your shoes in every shape, way, or form. And she was just dumbfounded, like, what is going on? And because I think sometimes those families look at us and don't think that
Like
we're human. You know what I mean? Like we don't encounter these things.
well, that's what I was gonna.
And
That's why I had to say that about you're not in the funeral and
yeah,
dead people business because it's
right.
that initially that's what people's first thing is just like
Hmm.
how can you do that on a daily basis,
Yep.
but it's not even about that. It's about the
Right.
people. And
Uh-huh.
that's the important thing is like getting people through grief and dealing with people's
Hmm.
emotions, deploying a massive amount of empathy, which you did in that
Right.
situation because
Yeah.
you've been there. And what a great
Yep.
way to help somebody get through that by sharing that, because that you have to be feeling alone in that situation. You're just like
Correct.
the world's coming down.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yep. And so she was, yeah, obviously so grateful after, I kind of told her, like, I've been there, done that. It's not easy. And I was honest. I said, it's not easy, but it gets better. I mean, it's not like you're going to be in this spot for the rest of your life. And yeah, she was so grateful. And obviously it's heartwarming. But it's funny because Saley works there too. And so she works on the other side. Like she actually works the services and the visitations. And I don't know if it's just because of what we both have been through that we're able to do that. She loves her job. And I mean, for someone her age at 17 to have a job in the funeral home, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah,
And
it
she
is.
does an amazing job. So, yeah, I don't know if it's just like you said what we've been through and we've, come out on that other side of things that we're able to do it because like you said, not everybody can do it.
No.
But I always say not everybody wants to be a garbage man either. So that's
Right.
my saying when they're like,
Exactly. But
how do you do this? And I'm like, well, somebody's got to do it.
somebody's got to do it, and I just happen to be good at it.
Right. And I love it. So that's a plus. So,
So recap real quick, few things that, if you were talking to somebody right now, you're looking at the camera right now. If you were talking to somebody who is going through depression, who has, what would you say to them? Talking to somebody right now, get, just three actionable steps of what they can do to somehow realize that it's not that bad, or, just something. What would you say?
well, my first thing would be if you have a significant other or you have children, look them in the eyes and think, can they live without me? I mean, really, honestly, because the answer is no. They never can. None of them. I mean, even if you have parents, I mean, somebody that's close to you, you really need to look them dead in the eyes and envision that
Huge.
that's not a possibility. because that's how I feel with Saley. Like, if he would have really taken the time to look at her, there's no way he could have left. There's no way. And then second, find someone that you can truly trust with everything that you have. Obviously, to share that you're feeling depressed. Okay, today I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling like, I want to kill myself. Have that person. You need at least one person. You might have more than that. And if so, you're lucky. That's not always the case.
Right.
But find that one person that you can truly confide in, your deepest, darkest stuff. And then three, this could be iffy for people, but it works for me. Just praying. I know it sounds kind of, cliche, but just knowing. I mean, maybe it's not God to you. Maybe it's just a higher power.
Well,
And
yeah,
that's
for me,
totally
it's
fine.
like praying is, it's really at the basis form, it's self-talk.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
basically speaking into the universe, like, and it just impresses
Mhm.
upon our subconscious, So, like, if
Right.
you're praying about it, you're speaking it into, existence.
Yeah.
And so I totally agree. Well, what about to somebody, if you were talking to somebody who is witnessing this or doesn't quite know that they're seeing signs, but like, things to help somebody be aware of it or pay attention.
So, like I said, I don't take things lightly anymore. I've been through it too much, but I don't think it hurts to be overcautious at this point. You just don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe they could be just pulling your leg. Maybe they just want attention. Well, you know what? They messed with the wrong person. I mean, I just don't take things lightly. And I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, I don't care if someone jokes around with you. They're going to get a phone call because I don't mess with it. You just don't know. And I don't want that. And on it, like my kids is conscious, like, oh, I didn't say anything to mom because, she's over, exaggerate or whatever. But I just don't want that on anybody's conscience that they would have to carry that guilt.
And
And
that's
that's what I told Saley many times. Do you want that on your conscience that she told you, she was feeling depressed, and then you didn't do anything about it, and then next day she get a phone call that she's committed suicide, and she's like, no. I'm like, exactly.
and that's
I'd rather her be mad at
that's a
you and
great point.
alive
That's a
than
great point right there because most kids hold that stuff in. So if you
yep,
notice any of your friends, anybody who's
right,
watching this video, if you notice any of your friends, do not be afraid to say something to your parents, to
mhm,
any loved one, because you really don't want that on your conscience that you knew
heck
something and
no,
didn't say something, So that's
mhm,
huge right there.
yep, that's our
But
big thing.
you got anything else to add?
I don't think so. This was awesome.
Are you satisfied?
I am.
Awesome. Guys,
Yeah.
this has been Opening Doors podcast. Today's show was about suicide awareness. Our special guest, Sanita Glick Simms, was with us. She was kind enough to share her experience. I hope this has helped somebody out there. If you have questions, I'm going to drop a link in the comments below or in the description below. It's going to have my email address. It's going to have a link to the AFSP.org, possibly Sanita's email address if she wants to put that in there. But comment if you have questions about this. That's pretty much like and share it. Get it out to somebody. If you know somebody, if you see something, say something, and definitely
Mhm.
share something. So I really appreciate you guys today. Thank you for joining us. And Sanita, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
See ya. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.